Well, it's all over in Allianz Arena in Germany. Guess what? Paris Saint-Germain have trashed International by 5-0. Hakimi, Désiré Doué, and of course, Kvaratskhelia all doing the business for the Parisians tonight. And look, the guys have spoken big ahead of the game, and I'm just returning to them to take their final thoughts after 90 minutes have been done. Force and the big man courage to my left-hand side as usual. Charlie, guys, are you surprised, first of all? Because I am surprised.
There's no surprise in this. Going into this game, I knew very well that PSG had an upper hand because of their fearsome midfield and then also how sharp they've been in attack. Approaching this Champions League, especially from the round of 16 where they saw off Manchester City easily. Went on to beat Brest. Again, beat Arsenal were on fire before meeting PSG. They brushed them aside and then preparing very well for this special final. Even if you check in their domestic league, they were done with the league long ago, so they were just preparing. Yeah. Yes, they were just preparing towards this particular final match. So there's no surprise. Looking at Inter Milan, I knew they would come in with some sort of experience and then trying to use their mind. But then PSG were in for business. They've never won it before, so they are more hungrier than this Inter Milan team. So I don't think there wasn't any surprise. I anticipated the PSG win, and that's exactly what happened.
First, Paris Saint-Germain treble is now a reality. League Coupe de France. They even won. In fact, they won 4 trophies this season. If you add add the Champions League to it. What do you make of Luis Enrique's side?
What to be sincere with you, I really do not. I really do not praise PSG for winning the treble. You understand? Because winning the treble in France is not as compared to winning the treble in probably Germany, Italy, France, or England. But I would say that kudos to PSG. You know, every pundit who understands and appreciates football knew going into this game there's going to be a tough order for Inter Milan. You know, prior to the game, I had thought that was going to be a bit closer. You know, because of what Inter Milan has been able to do in this year's Champions League. You know, taking out Bayern Munich, taking out Barcelona in incredible fashion. You understand? I mean, so I thought that it was going to be a bit tougher for PSG to take the day. PSG was going to win, all right, but for them to have gone into the game and then create the kind of performance that they've been able to create today, 5-0, the highest scoreline in the Champions League history. I think that is disastrous for Inter Milan, because I never expected, that Inter Milan was going to be annihilated. And this is the exact way of how not to play a Champions League final. You understand? You come into the game demotivated. You come into the game and you do not know what you are doing. You come into the game and for almost 45 minutes, Inter Milan were not able to string their passes together. The moment you lose the midfield battle, the moment you are not able to string the passes together, you've already lost the game, because you are up against a team that has a solid midfield base. You are up against a team that has a core that is very young. You are up against a team that has pacey players. So if you are not able to counter transition, it's going to be difficult for you to have a foothold in the game. And that's exactly what we saw. Inter on the day was shambolic. Inter on the day were disastrous. Inter on the day, tactically, they were inept. Inter on the day, in terms of their tempo, they were not up to standard. And I really do not know. Lautaro Martinez and what's the name? The French striker. Thuram. Yeah. They represented what not a center forward pair should do in the game today, because they were nowhere to be seen. Their pressing were poor. Their pressing was poor. Their coordination was not there. Their understanding and movement was not there. And you see, if you have strikers who are not mobile, if you have strikers who are only good when playing with their back to goal, you find it difficult when they are faced with center defenders who are very quick, because you are not going to see central defenders who are stagnant. You understand? Because if you look at Marquinhos, if you look at the central defensive pair of PSG, these are players who are very mobile. You look at the goal that Achraf Hakimi scored. Look at the movement. Look at the movement. Dimarco was not able to track his movement. And look at where he moved from lateral defense into the opposition box. Yeah, so it is what not to do in the Champions League final that Inter Milan has shown us.
I mean, you made a very important point of Hakimi. In fact, he's one of the highest scoring defenders. I mean, this particular season, even in Europe. Now, Courage first made a very important statement. He spoke about the fact that you look at Inter Milan, look at their age, the average age. When you check statistically, it's around 30 years plus. You check that of PSG, 24 years, 19 days, averagely. Do you think that tonight, as far as the finals are concerned, the youth quality that the PSG team had overcame the old age of international?
I think it was useful exuberance to put in a proper context, because you look at this PSG team, the elderliest player in that team was Marquinhos.
Yeah.
I think he survived that total overhauling. The team that went to the Champions League final, I think 5 years ago during the COVID, and they were being coached by Thomas Tuchel. He's the only survivor in that particular squad. They had Neymar and co. So you look at Désiré Doué, 19 years. The guy who scored the last goal, he just turned 19 years a month ago. And I look at Bakula, 19 years. Kvaratskhelia is not that old, he's 24. You look at Dembélé, like Vitinha and then the rest, they are just very, very young, and then with full of energy and then determination. You see, so this is the kind of players we need if you want to build something with that requires a lot of energy. Press resistance, they don't give up. Achraf Hakimi running down the laterals, going back and forth. As a point, I saw Achraf Hakimi going all the way to the left wing to go and make a tackle, and then I saw Dembélé tracking back to protect Achraf Hakimi's position. That means they also have the telepathy, they have the communication, they have the understanding among themselves. So it was an absolute teamwork, as against should I say individual brilliance, because if you look at the Inter Milan team, they were depending on individual skills. Maybe Barcola should create a magic. Lautaro Martinez should do something. Hakan Çalhanoğlu should work on his set pieces and stuff. But then the PSG team didn't rely on a single player. You see, Dembélé didn't score.
No.
Dembélé was their star player or star man. He didn't score, but he worked. They had a hand in almost 3 goals out of the 5 goals scored. So you could see they were determined. They worked very hard for it. They've been preparing for this for years, and then after winning the French league, they said no. So if you that match against Strasbourg, I followed that match very keenly. They dropped all their players and then played reserve players who have never worn the jerseys before from academy and stuff. So they were fully concentrated on the Champions League final. As at today Saturday, as at Tuesday, they were preparing their grounds in Paris. They were preparing all the way to Munich. So if someone starts preparing for a match that will be kicked off on Saturday, start preparing on Tuesday, you know how serious he's taking it. So it's well deserved. They really worked hard for it, and then the youthful exuberance beats the old age experience.
Now, first, very quick one. Do you think that Inter were just a bit sluggish in today's final? They are a team that are known to control the ball most of the time. They want to retain. They want to soak the pressure. Do you think that PSG was just too quality for them to soak the pressure?
You see, the DNA of Inter Milan, right, is to counter press. Do you understand? The DNA, the fabric of Inter Milan is to play on the counter, especially if the opposition has an equal strength or the opposition is better than them. When you come to the Champions League, every single team that has gotten to the quarters, the semis and the finals are either of equal strength or are better than Inter Milan. But when you go to the Italian Serie A, they are by far the biggest. So most of the time they have the ball. If you look at the match they played against Bayern Munich, they were defensive. If you look at the match they played against Barcelona, they were defensive. But you see, the difference in those games and these games were that they were up to the task.
Absolutely.
They got their passes right. They got their transition spot on. They got their pressing spot on. They got the understanding spot on. Do you understand? In today's match, the first thing that they got wrong was the fact that they were not getting their passes right. So the moment you are not getting the passes right, it means that what you are going to find it difficult, because on an average, PSG was having about 60 to 70% of the game.
And absolutely, and that draws in the fact that when you pick the entire Euro-based season, apart from Manchester City that have been able to string more passes together, PSG is the second high. But even in terms of shot, PSG still ranks high.
It just tells you the story of PSG season. You understand? I mean, the moment they dispatched Liverpool, you knew that they meant business. You understand? But on the day, the storyline is the fact that Inter Milan did not get their passes right. And if you are not able to get the passes right, out of the few touches that you're going to have, then it's going to be very difficult for you. Secondly, they got their transition totally wrong. If you're playing on the counter, you need to have players who are very quick. You need to have players who are very quick. You see, Inter could not match the energy, the quickness, and the directness of PSG. PSG do not have players who are very skillful. Absolutely. But they have players who are direct. Kvaratskhelia is very direct. Dembélé is very direct. You understand? So when they get the ball, before you realize, they are in the opposition half. And those are the things that led to the goals.
And I think Karic was applauding the Georgian international.
Yes,
I think halftime. I mean, his hunger, his passing. I mean, the guy just wants to score a goal. And it paid off.
It's not necessarily the hunger to want to score a goal. It is the culture that has been built. You understand? Every single player in that PSG squad understands that there's a job, there's a role for him to play. That is why when you realize that Achraf Hakimi has transitioned into the left wings, Dembélé was able to track back and then hold the fort in the right back position. That would not have happened last season. That would not have happened with Kylian Mbappe. You understand? So sometimes you have to understand the culture that has been created. And you see, one thing that a lot of people are not talking about is the fact that Luis Enrique has been given the free hand to work. Sack whomever you want to sack. Bring in whomever you want to bring in. You understand? So it has given him the motivation to fine-tune the team into his own image, like he did in the AS Roma, like he did at Barcelona. That is why when he let Neymar go, he let Lionel Messi go, Sergio Ramos go, he let Kylian Mbappe go, nobody complained. Nobody complained because the hierarchy was not looking at the names again. The hierarchy was looking at what are they going to be able to achieve. Because remember when PSG was bought by the Qataris 14 years ago, the ambition was to win the Champions League. The ambition was not to win the French League. You understand? The ambition was to transition PSG into a monopoly, not only in France, but in Europe. Yeah. Just like what Man City has been able to achieve, just like what Chelsea has been able to achieve. And that is what has led to this triumph. If they hadn't given Luis Enrique the free hand, this achievement would not have been possible.
Absolutely. Karen, that brings you in. Now, you watch the managers, you watch how Luis Enrique celebrates tonight at the Allianz Arena. He becomes one of the 6 managers in European history to lift the trophy twice with a different club. We've seen Carlo Ancelotti, we've seen Pep Guardiola with Manchester City and then Barcelona, even Luis Enrique himself, 2015 with Barcelona. And in fact, so many Jose Mourinho and the rest of them. What do you think is the motivation for him as a manager going into today's game?
He's a coach who drilled his squad very, 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 very well. With he instilled discipline, desire, commitment, everything, every single thing. So you could find all the ingredients in this current PSG team. They are mixed with just about some 4 experienced players. Donnarumma, he's been playing since age 18. Marquinhos, he's been to World Cup. He's seen it all at the world stage. Fabian Ruiz, Euros winner. And then Dembélé, who also started very, very early. He's been in Rennes, Dortmund, Barcelona. Then the rest are practically very, very young players. There's a certain Neves who came to England to a very low team, as low as this team, Wolves. Couldn't find his feet there. Went back to Portugal. But then how to spot that talent and then bring him back? Someone who has been in Europe, couldn't perform in a relatively lower club, and then bring him back to a very big club with culture.
And to even use him.
That should even tell you. That should even tell the amount of work Luis Enrique has put in. And then he was also willing to get his name on the book of records. You mention him, and then if you are mentioning the same way you are mentioning Luis Enrique, it's a very big honor and then an achievement for him. So kudos to him. Yeah, he has worked really hard for this achievement. He didn't come on a silver platter to get rid of Leo Messi, the players first mentioned, to get rid of these players, and then bring in unsung heroes like players. Who is Désiré Doué? Where does he come from? Who is Bakola? Where are these players coming from? You see, so if a coach is able to instill confidence in these players, get them to understand his system, his playing method, and everything, and then execute it very, very, very well, to the extent of winning the ultimate champions of Europe. They didn't only win the Champions League, but they swept off all their domestic trophies as well. So come on.
And you see, courage.
Before you come in, I want to make a very clear statement. Now, the statement is that Kylian Mbappe, I'm sure, is one of the players who's going to sit on the edge of his bed tonight. He was at Paris Saint-Germain, and Madrid lifted it. Besides to move to Madrid, and PSG has lifted it. I just don't know.
Okay,
I wouldn't be sad for Kylian Mbappe, because I can tell you for a fact Madrid will win the Champions League.
Absolutely.
And Madrid will win a couple of Champions Leagues. Yes. You understand?
So that is from force.
Oh yes. You see.
It's their dream.
Let's not lose sight of what PSG has been able to create this season.
Absolutely.
When they beat Man City 4-2, people said, "Oh, Man City was not on form." Yes, we got it right. You understand? But even if Man City were not on form, how difficult, or what is the level of difficulty beating Man City after going 2 goals down? You can't take it away from PSG.
Absolutely.
They beat Man City 4-2. They went on to beat Liverpool. When they lost 1-0 at home, everybody thought that they were going to find it difficult at Liverpool, right? Yes. At Anfield. They went to Anfield and they did what? They outplayed Liverpool to the extent that Ancelotti Slot said that was the best game he has seen from an opposition side.
Absolutely.
So it tells you what PSG is all about. They met Arsenal, and Arsenal had absolutely no chance of even drawing the game. Do you understand? And then the ultimate, I would say on record and confidently that if care is not taken, and Luis Enrique gets it right, they might be contenders again next season. Because if you look at this score, majority of this score are under 20 years.
Yes.
Majority of the players. And you see, the players have bought into the idea.
Yes. They've understood.
They do not complain. They do not create hegemony. Because there's a clear message that has been sent to them. If you want to be a part of the squad, if you want to be used as a player, or if you want to be part of the family that they've been able to create, you would have to toe a particular line. And the line is discipline. One. The line is that whenever you are not playing, you don't complain. Unlike previously where you see wrangling, you saw ego. And you see, one thing about this team is the fact that there's no ego. There's no ego. Because if there would have been an ego, it would have come from Dembélé. Dembélé is the most experienced player in that squad, barring Achraf Hakimi or Marquinhos. You understand? But
personal Kimpembe has been sitting on the bench since the quarterfinals.
Yeah. But he doesn't complain.
Yes.
That is what I'm saying. That you see, if you understand the context is for the good of the team, not for your individual not for your individual ego. Then you buy into the idea of what a club is trying to achieve, and it's going to go on your record as a player as being a part of a Champions League winning school. Because the last time a French team won the Champions League was 1993 when Marseille did it. So it doesn't
and guess where they did it? It was back in Munich.
Yes.
It was. Thank you. Yes, you understand? Led by Abedi Pele. You see, so you see, it is funny how times have changed. A team from the Farmers League that they have been dubbed has conquered not only Europe, but conquered 4 teams from England, right?
Yes.
And have played the most scintillating, the most expansive football this season that I have seen.
You know one thing, during the group phase, they were nowhere to be found. They actually lost on qualification
Because they were also beaten by Arsenal.
Yeah.
You see, so they went on a playoff round with Manchester City. So that is where they found their firepower and then went on to win the ultimate.
But again, talk about possessing, talk about flamboyant play, and I think you scored that excellent force. Even tonight, just check the stat. First half, over 60% for Paris Saint-Germain. Second half stats in terms of possession, 59%. Talk about shots on goal.
A lot. They dominated.
Look, in fact, you cannot count as many as even 5 for Inter. That tells you that this particular Paris Saint-Germain team under Luis Enrique have been a force to reckon with. Quality team by all standard, and the fact that they are young guys, it's huge motivation.
The quality runs through. You see a team without a balance, right? They are very good in the attacking third, a bit mild in their defensive third, or weak in their defense. But you look at this PSG setup, and you come to their goalkeeper, world-renowned goalkeeper Donnarumma. You come to the defensive setup, Marquinhos, one of the best in the game. Achraf Hakimi, arguably one of the best right backs in the game, right? And then you go to their midfield, and you see, funny enough, this season, there has never been a midfield pair so dominant like what PSG has been able to create.
Yes, I agree with that. They are midfield.
You understand? The midfield trio of Reus, what's the name? Neves,
Paulo.
You see, so it tells you now what there's a spine that Luis Enrique is working with,
full of energy.
And you go to the attacking third, and nobody's going to say anything about that. Crazy. So
you don't know which three will show up on a day.
That is why it is good to distribute the goal scoring among your squad. You understand? Because
you can't
like you rightly indicated, Dembélé played his heart out, but never got a goal.
Yes.
But 5 goals were scored.
Yes.
Do you understand? Imagine if we had a Kylian Mbappe in this game.
With such ego.
With all his ego to want to score. I get the point. And remember that nobody was forcing to get a ball to Dembélé.
No.
Anybody in a good position, the ball goes to that person.
Hakimi scored his goal.
It is what has been created. It is what has been, fixated on. You see, we have to understand that it has gotten to a point where if you have ego, if you have ego as a player, you're not going to win anything. Because the game has totally changed. If you go to, for example, Real Madrid this season, there was a bit of an ego.
Yes.
You understand? Who wants to be the main man? Who wants to be the main man? But if you take away the ego and every single player gives out his best, I can tell you for the fact that it's going to be difficult for you not to win. But remember, next season is going to be funny. Very, very funny, because Real Madrid is going to overhaul.
Barcelona
is going to buy.
Liverpool are coming in stronger.
Liverpool has a solid team, but they're also going to add up.
City will come.
And City.
PSG.
Do you understand?
Bayern.
And Bayern is also going to buy. And you see, the funny thing is that Bayern has been starved of winning the Champions League for a long time.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right?
Inter Milan kicked them out of this year.
Yes.
Quarterfinal.
Yeah. So Bayern has been starved. So next season is going to be crazy. And the funny thing is that you see teams being on an equal footing now.
Yeah.
Because of the distribution of money. Right? Because if Aston Villa can go in for a player, what, 70 million, 60 million, right? If teams at the lower edge, a bit under the top 5, probably the Chelseas, and then you come to Newcastle and then Aston Villa, you go to Germany, and then you see Bayer Leverkusen also competing. So next season is going to be crazy compared to what we are seeing today.
And I think it's to be fair, it is great for the game. But that brings in the next question. Do you think that finally patience has paid off for the Qatari investors? 13 years.
It wasn't patience. It was aggressive investment. You understand? Because if they had wanted to be patient, they wouldn't have achieved this success. Because when Chelsea overlooked Enrique, last season Chelsea did a demonstration for Enrique did a demonstration for the Chelsea hierarchy. How he wants his team to play. You understand? They saw it, they were happy with him, but the problem was that they wanted to control the players he was going to buy. And Luis Enrique is as tough and stubborn as Jose Mourinho. You are never going to have one at him. So he said no. He went to PSG. And they gave him everything that he needed. The free hand. You see, if you want a coach to succeed, give him the free hand. Right? And that is what we have seen. So it is not patience. It is what? Constant investment. Because 14 years ago when they bought the team, their ultimate desire was to overthrow Marseille and Lyon. They had done that 10 years ago.
Yeah,
now it was up to them to conquer Europe. And that has been the bane. The nearest and the closest they had come was 5 years ago when they lost to Bayern Munich in the finals, 1-0. So, yes, we can say patience, but how can you be patient and not invest in quality? So, yes, patience. But the most important thing about this PSG team is the fact that they have been aggressively investing. People might say the players are young, but that is investment. If you are able to invest in quality without thinking about age, this is the result that you are going to get. And that's what has helped them.
Courage. In fact, we've seen most of the big teams, even including Madrid, hit their peak decline. And sometimes after European success, we see a lot of complacency from teams. What would be your advice to Luis Enrique and then this young squad of Paris Saint-Germain?
See, they've been yearning for this particular trophy for their whole life. They managed to achieve it. What else? I don't think they will come in as competitive as they are this season. Though they'll compete, but not as competitive, not as intensive as we've seen them this season. Maybe they get somewhere close to around 60 or quarter final. Because these are young players. Competency will surely set in. They'll feel like, Charlie, we won it. Retaining is not. The only team that has the right or the best right to retain this Champions League is Real Madrid. Maybe Barcelona. But we are yet to see.
Barcelona has not been able to do it.
Maybe they can.
No. Even in their aplomb, even when they were the best team in the world.
Maybe they can.
No, they can't. You see, let's be factual. For 3, 4, 5 years, Barcelona were the best team in the world. You understand? From 2007 to 2009, 2012, they were the best team in the world, and they could not even retain the Champions League. So retaining the Champions League is a hell of a job.
Yes, I don't expect PSG to retain it or no. But then they just enjoy while it lasts. They should just enjoy their moments.
Well, we've had a lot of bites at Paris Saint-Germain, who are now officially champions of Europe. But let's talk about Inter. It didn't happen for them in the Italian Serie A. Just 1 point. I mean, Napoli struck them off that title race.
Final game day.
Yes, there's a final, but even that is even 50-50. Nothing has happened yet. Let's focus on this Champions League final. What do you think is the way for Simeone Inzaghi and this Inter team?
What to me, if I were the director of football for Inter Milan,
you should wipe away this midfield.
No, you don't wipe away. You have to overhaul. You understand? I first and foremost
37, 36, 35.
No, you don't get a point. You see, the Italians believe in experience.
Yeah.
They believe in age. I get to the point. But you can compete with youth all the time when you are old. So I would believe that the first I'll get the 2 center forwards off. Martinez and what's the name?
Joao Neves.
No, Martinez and what's the name?
For Pierre.
No.
Brozovic. No, Brozovic.
The French guy in Inter Milan.
Thuram.
To me, they are not good enough. You understand? To me, they've passed their peak. Getting a solid defensive base. Get young midfielders. Get a proper striker. You are done. So the team must be overhauled, because you see, it is funny that in the last 3 years they've lost 2 Champions League finals.
Yes,
they've lost 2 Champions League finals.
And the last time they won it was back in
2000.
15 years ago.
Yes, 2010.
And that 2010 team, Milito, I mean, that was another crazy squad.
They had about 4 top strikers.
You don't win the Champions League without top strikers because you need goals to win the Champions League. Sometimes people say defenses win you what? Championships. But I can tell you for a fact, if you don't score goals, you don't win championships. So that is what they need. So but you see, Inter Milan is not going to go into the market and spend 150 million pounds because they don't have it. Do you understand? So there again, the question comes back again. Are they going to get a quality that money buys? Because you can go into the market and buy quality cheap. Do you understand? If you are going for top-notch players, not less than 50 million pounds. And it's going to be difficult for them to, but they would have to find a way to bring in quality. Because without that, they might not be able to compete in next season. Because next season, Napoli is going to be competing again.
Charlie, guys,
is going to be competing again.
We've had enough. 1 minute, and then we're almost going off, or 30 seconds each. Who do you think is your best player for the UEFA Champions League this season?
Lamine
Yamal, Courage.
Ousmane Dembélé.
Well, so it's two opposite or divergent views as far as the UEFA Champions League is concerned in terms of who is one of the best in Europe. And tonight, this is where we conclude one of the best tournaments in the world, the UEFA Champions League. After 90 minutes at the Allianz Arena in Germany, it is the French team, Paris Saint-Germain, that came out the strongest. Unfortunately, we don't have to sing the song. Or Carry the singing us.
Oh, that's the song.
You don't have a problem. You just at King, you're singing something.